Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just going to blather. Today there isn't going to be any particular structure to what I say. Why not? Because I'm going to talk about my trials and tribulations to date with the wonderful language, or not so wonderful language, depending on what you think of it, of Mandarin Chinese. Chinese, the act of learning Chinese, let's put it like that, the act of learning Chinese has been by some margin the most difficult, cognitively demanding and difficult thing that I've ever done in my life. I consider myself to be a reasonably smart and capable chap, and there aren't that many things that I take on intellectually that make me think that I should probably just quit because I'm never going to get anywhere with it anyway. But Chinese has probably come closer than anything else. My Chinese is moving towards being some sort of B2 type level now, moving towards being upper intermediate. And I'm studying it a lot, and I have no doubt whatsoever that I will certainly get to a decent B2 level over the next year, let's say. So in one sense, I've managed to deal with Chinese. I've managed to keep going to the point where that provisional finishing line is in sight. But my God, it's been hard, and I just thought I would talk about that a little bit today. I knew that Chinese would be tough. Of course I knew that, I'm not an idiot. I knew that Chinese would be tough when I started studying it, but I have been taken back by just how hard it is. When I started studying it, I was still studying Russian quite intensively. I don't work on my Russian as much these days. But I was working on my Russian quite intensively then. Well, I was doing 3 hours a day of Russian, and I was trying to do an hour of Chinese, and I was doing other things as well, and it was pretty tough. An hour a day of Chinese, it kind of amazes me now that I was willing to even bother with it, putting that little time into it. A language that alien, an hour a day, you could bash away at it for years, doing an hour a day and hardly get anywhere. But I must have started about 6 years ago with Chinese, and I studied an hour a day for a year, and then I quit. I quit because I suppose I must have been losing motivation anyway, but I had quite a humiliating online lesson. I just felt like I was so bad at Chinese. I quit the lesson halfway through. I just felt so atrociously bad at it. I felt like I made so little progress that I just felt humiliated. So I quit it for a while. The approach that I'd taken with Russian didn't seem to be working with Chinese, although I was studying Russian 3 hours a day from the get-go. And obviously that made a big difference. 1 hour a day isn't enough. Anyway, nearly a year later, I decided to give Chinese another crack. So I got back into it, and I understood that I was going to have to do a hell of a lot more listening than I'd been doing in the past. I understood that that was my big mistake. So when I got back into it, I remembered most of the grammar. I had some vocabulary there. I had some understanding of how Chinese was pronounced, etc., etc. Got back into it and did a lot of listening. And I studied for about 10 months, probably an average of about 3 hours a day. And I made a lot of progress. My vocabulary expanded a lot. I wasn't doing any conversation, no substantial amount. Maybe I did a few lessons on iTalki. But my listening comprehension improved a lot. I started to feel for the first time like I was really understanding Chinese, as long as people didn't speak too quickly. And I reached a point where I thought I would never quit now. I've made too much progress, it would be stupid to quit. So obviously I then quit, because I just thought, this is insane, man, what's the point of doing this? You've got to be kidding. I'm never going to be able to study this for the years and years that it would take to get any good at it. This was actually during the pandemic. It seemed a bit daft that I quit during the pandemic. I had a lot of spare time, but hey, that's life. I, like many other people, this would have been in 2020, yeah. I thought that we were coming out of the pandemic, and we were not, were we, in the summer of 2020, unfortunately. So that winter in December, when lockdowns were starting again and restrictions were being imposed again, I thought, damn man, I've got at least 6 months here in Spain, basically locked up in a house by myself. I have two options, realistically speaking. I can spend a lot of time working on my Russian, or I can spend a lot of time working on my Chinese. And I'd already been studying Russian intensively for over 5 years by then. I thought, hey, my Russian's already kind of advanced. Not perfect, but pretty good. Maybe I should take this opportunity to really crack on with the Chinese. So I started studying Chinese again. Again, I don't know, 3 hours a day on average, something like that. And I kept that up for about another 10 months. And I did much more Chinese conversation this time. And I reached a zone where for the first time in my life I was having real Chinese conversations. When I say real conversations, I mean conversations where two people were discussing things of mutual interest to them. It's not just what is your name, where do you live, what food do you like, right? That was a fantastic feeling. I had made a lot of progress. What level was I at? Some kind of middling B1 type level. I wasn't good, not by any stretch of the imagination. And eventually I felt a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of study that I'd been doing, and I quit again. There were certain things that I thought were going to happen in my life in the nearish future, and I didn't think that I would be able to maintain any sort of commitment to my Chinese with all these other things that were going on. And I kind of stopped. I don't think I realized that I was going to go back into that zone where I thought that I had quit forever, but I did. And that left me in an awkward position because I was starting to get to a conversational level, but I had stopped, and that made me feel uncomfortable. You think, isn't that kind of dumb to reach that point and then stop? Anyway, language learning is psychologically complex, right? It's not plain sailing. It's not just a straight line from A to B. And that is illustrated by the fact that about 6 months later I started again. That was in April of last year, April of 2022. I thought, with another year, if I can do 3 hours a day for another year, I think I could get to a much more solid upper intermediate level. That was just over a year ago, and I've probably averaged well over 3.5 hours a day over that period of a year and a month, something like that. What's my level like now? Well, I've done it's a lot better. I've done a lot of listening. I've done a lot of speaking, conversation. I'm starting to be much more genuinely conversational. I'm taking a break actually from that at the moment. I'm taking a break from the conversation practice and doing a lot of consolidation, revision, listening, stuff like that. But this stopping and starting, it's not characteristic of me. Normally when I want to do something, I do it consistently until I reach a level where I feel reasonably comfortable, and then I decide how to proceed from there. Chinese has been terribly, terribly hard, man. Terribly, terribly hard. I would never have imagined that anything could be quite as hard as Chinese has turned out to be.